Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining today's webinar. I see everyone trickling in here. I'll just give you a moment. As introductions, I'm Kaylee Rembosch from the marketing team here at Northern. Let's see how many. All right, people are piling in. Give it just a moment longer before we kick things off. Perfect. All right, well, we'll get going. There will be a recording shared after the fact. So if anyone misses anything, they'll be able to tune in. So as I said, I'm Kaylee Rembosch here from Northern. Now, we know this is the most important season of the year for many of you. And with so much change happening, from tariffs, evolving consumer confidence, and AI reshaping the way shoppers search and buy, our goal today is to give you insights, strategies, and tools to navigate the season with confidence. Despite the economic uncertainty, holiday retail is still forecast to grow this year. That means there's real opportunity for brands who are prepared. Today, we'll unpack what consumers are expecting, how they're shopping, when they're buying, and what builds trust. And we'll share actionable strategies across media, SEO, and creative that can help you maximize performance for this Black Friday, Cyber Monday, and beyond. I'm thrilled to be joined by our Northern team of experts. Brent Maxwell, Director of Performance Strategy, who will break down the numbers and highlight where the biggest opportunities lie this season. Kristen Major, Digital Marketing Team Lead, who will walk us through AI's growing role in search. And Matt Robb, our Creative Director, who will explore how brands can stand out with messaging and creative that connect. We'll cover the latest trends, practical strategies, and examples you can take back to your teams. At the end, we'll also open the floor for Q&A. So as we go, please be sure to drop any questions you have into the Q&A box. With that, let's dive in, starting with a look back at last year's holiday season and what it tells us about 2025. Over to you, Brent.
Awesome. Thanks, Kelly. Okay, so yeah, before we dive into what's ahead for 2025, I want to start by quickly looking back at last year's Q4 and holiday season. It was definitely a unique one, especially here in Canada, with a lot of uncertainty in the market. We had some unexpected disruptions like the Canada Post strike and a GST tax break announcement that influenced consumer behavior. On top of that, the US election was happening at the same time, which pulled a lot of media spend south of the border and drove up costs like CPMs. And if that wasn't enough, the calendar itself didn't help us. With Black Friday falling later, we ended up with a much shorter window between Cyber Monday and Christmas, which put extra pressure on both retailers and consumers. Now, despite all those headwinds, retail sales in Canada still grew by 3.5%. And in the US, they grew by 4.1% year over year. And that's a really important point. Even in an environment full of uncertainty, consumers still showed up and we saw growth. And when we look ahead to 2025, the reality is it's going to be no different. There are already a number of big picture factors creating uncertainty for this holiday season as well. The two biggest ones that we're going to focus on throughout this presentation are tariffs and the impact those are having on costs and consumer sentiment, and the rise of AI, which is quickly becoming a major factor in how both consumers shop and how brands market during this period. So, as we go through today, keep in mind that yes, uncertainty will always be there, but history shows us that even through those challenges, there are still opportunities for growth if we're prepared and adaptable. Now, when we talk about this year's holiday season, one of the biggest forces shaping the economic landscape is tariffs, and the impact has been significant. If you look at the chart on this slide, what stands out is just how much economic uncertainty has spiked in both Canada and the US. There was, of course, a massive peak back in 2020 during the pandemic, which no surprise there. But what's really striking is that in 2025, uncertainty levels are even higher than what we saw during COVID. That gives you a sense of just how disruptive tariffs and economic policy have been across both economies. And this matters because uncertainty doesn't just sit in the background. It trickles down into consumer confidence, into spending behaviors, and also into how brands are making decisions. On the consumer side, it can lead to hesitation and more price sensitivity. And on the brand side, it can influence everything from inventory planning to how aggressive they want to be with promotions. So, this slide is really about setting the stage. We're at a moment of record high uncertainty, and that's going to shape how both shoppers and brands navigate this upcoming holiday season. So, when we look at that record high uncertainty we just talked about, the next question is how is that actually playing out in consumer behavior this holiday season? Well, according to PwC's 2025 Holiday Outlook survey, the impact is clear. Across the board, 84% of consumers say they're planning to cut back in general over the next 6 months. And when we zoom in on the holidays specifically, more than half, 53%, say that rising prices are going to directly affect how much they spend this season. Now, what's especially interesting is when we isolate consumers who are most concerned about tariffs. These are shoppers who are really feeling the pressure of higher prices or worried about product availability. On average, they're planning to spend about 10% less on gifts compared to those who are not as concerned. And it doesn't stop there. 90% of tariff concerned shoppers are just cutting back overall. So, the takeaway here is that tariffs aren't just some abstract economic factor. They're very much top of mind for consumers. And that concern is showing up in how much they're budgeting for the holidays and where they're choosing to cut back. This is going to be a critical factor for brands to account for as they plan their promotions and strategies. So, we just talked about the impacts tariffs are having on consumers, and it's clear they're planning to be cautious with their wallets. But here's the important point that doesn't mean the outlook is all negative. If we look back, we saw this exact same story in 2024. There was a lot of uncertainty in the market, but when the dust settled, retail sales still grew year over year in both Canada and the US. And the data so far in 2025 suggests we could see a very similar pattern. These charts from MasterCard are a good example. So in Canada, we did see a small dip in retail sales in Q1, but the rebound in Q2 was really strong. And when we look ahead, MasterCard is forecasting continued healthy growth in the back half of the year, with about 3.2% projected growth for Q3 and Q4. And in the US, they're forecasting a 3.6% growth in retail sales for November and December year over year. So, even in the face of tariffs, uncertainty, and consumer caution, the overall trend points to spending that will still be there, especially in Q4 when the holidays really drive activity. So, yes, the headwinds are real, but there's still a lot of opportunity on the table for brands who are prepared and proactive. And that brings us into the next part of the discussion. What exactly consumers are prioritizing this year, and how you as a brand can align your strategy to win their attention and their dollars. So, with that, let's dive into what's actually driving consumer purchase decision in 2025. So, unsurprisingly, price remains the number one factor. With tariffs and inflations putting pressure on wallets, consumers are going to be very price conscious. Promotions, discounts, and free shipping offers continue to be the biggest motivator for holiday shopping, which no major change there year over year. But what is new and really important for this year is the rise of brand trust and product quality as key decision drivers. In fact, based on a survey from Google, 71% of consumers have rated trustworthiness as highly important when deciding where to shop. And you can see this shift reflected in consumer behavior online as well. So, Google searches for things like, is Sheen safe to buy from, are up over 250% year over year. And we're seeing an explosion of search terms for things like, is XYZ brand real or is this product a scam? That signals a real sensitivity around who consumers buy from and whether they believe a brand is credible. So, what's causing this shift? Well, there's a couple factors. First, the past few years have seen this surge in ultra low cost shopping platforms like Temu, where consumers chased that lowest possible price. But quality wasn't always there, and a lot of shoppers ended up disappointed. That's pushing people back towards brands they believe deliver better quality and value for their money. Secondly, we've seen an explosion of AI generated content and misinformation online. With so much noise, consumers are becoming more skeptical and are gravitating towards brands they know and trust. So, while price and promotions are still table stakes, this rise in trust and quality is an important new layer. It means that this holiday season, winning isn't just about having the best deal, it's about convincing shoppers that your brand is reliable and worth investing in. So, with brand trust and product quality becoming a bigger factor in 2025, the question now is, when does that trust actually get built? And the answer is, it happens well before Black Friday and Cyber Monday. The weeks leading up to the big promotional period are absolutely critical this year. If we look at Google's 2024 data, 73% of holiday purchases were researched before people ever hit the buy button. That is up 5 percentage points from 2023. And what that tells us is that consumers are doing a ton of their homework early. They're comparing products, they're checking reviews, and deciding which brands they trust long before they're actually ready to buy. We also saw that in the retail category overall, searches in general grew 8% last year. But what's most interesting is where that growth came from. It wasn't evenly spread across discovery, consideration, or purchase stages. The biggest jump was in that consideration phases, which contains searches like this brand versus that brand, product reviews, and direct brand comparisons. That's consumers doing their due diligence and trying to figure out who do they feel confident buying from. So the lead up to Black Friday, Cyber Monday, September, October, even early November, is when brands need to be visible, consistent, and trustworthy. This is where you build the equity that pays off once those deep discounts go live. And later in this presentation, we'll get into some specific creative strategies you can use to build that trust effectively. But for now, the big takeaway is that your holiday strategy cannot start on Black Friday. It has to start in the lead up when consumers are making their decisions about who they'll actually buy from. So, we just covered how consumers are doing a lot of their research and trust building earlier in the season. The next question is, when do they actually buy? So, in past years, especially during the pandemic, we saw this big shift towards earlier holiday shopping. Supply chain concerns, shipping delays, and inventory risks pushed consumers to buy in October and early November. Many brands responded by moving promos earlier and earlier. But in 2024, that trend shifted back. Instead of buying early, shoppers held out. Cyber Week sales grew 10% year over year, and Black Friday itself saw record breaking growth, up 7% in Canada, which is the biggest jump we've seen in 5 years. And the same trend was evident in the US, where there was a 14.6% increase in online retail sales on Black Friday itself compared to 2023. So, what's driving this shift? Well, more price conscious consumers. Tariffs, inflation, and tighter budgets mean people are waiting for the absolute best deal. We can also see this in the mindset of search data. So searches like good time to buy are up 72%, bad time to buy up 68%, and should I buy up 138%. So clearly, shoppers are timing conscious and they're holding out until they believe the biggest discount will hit. So, what does this mean for 2025? Well, we expect this pattern to continue. Most consumers will wait until the actual Black Friday Cyber Monday week to make purchases. That being said, we do still recommend going live with your Black Friday Cyber Monday promos at least a week before the actual day of Black Friday, which would be November 21st this year when you want to have those promos live. However, things like pre Black Friday sales or VIP offers at the start of November can still be effective for those who still want to shop early for that peace of mind. So the balance is build trust and consideration in September and October, layer in those early access or VIP sales in early November, but be prepared for the bulk of conversions to land in Cyber Week and the Black Friday Cyber Monday weekend. So, we just talked about overall timing trends and how most shoppers are likely to hold out until Cyber Week. but there's an important exception to keep in mind, and that is seasonal products, things like winter boots, jackets, etc. So, weather changes can dramatically shift demand. Data shows us that a 10 degrees temperature drop in the fall can spike demand for seasonal categories like winter boots by as much as 200%. But this isn't a long, sustained lift. Typically, that surge lasts about 2 weeks. People feel the season change, they realize they're unprepared, shop quickly, and then that demand normalizes. So, what does this mean for brands? Well, if you sell seasonal products, flexibility is key. Of course, you'll still want to align your promos with Black Friday and Cyber Monday, but it's just as important to be ready to pivot earlier if the weather shifts. So that could mean having creative and promotions built out and ready to launch as soon as temperatures drop in your target regions. So the takeaway is do not miss that 2 week demand window. For seasonal goods, the timing of your promo should be weather aware and not just calendar driven. So, as we've been discussing consumer behavior, it's also important to think about the other side of the equation, how tariffs are impacting brands themselves. So, one of the biggest effects we're seeing from tariffs is margin pressure. When you layer in both tariffs and rising supply chain costs, it makes it harder for brands to absorb those expenses without making adjustments elsewhere. Because of this, we don't expect brands to increase their discounts in 2025 compared to last year. In fact, we already saw this trend in 2024, where the average Cyber Week discount was 26%. This is actually 1% lower than what it was in 2023. That's a signal that brands are starting to pull back slightly on promotions to protect their margins. So for 2025, we expect much of the same. Competitive promotions will still matter because consumers are very price conscious right now, but we're not expecting a surge in deeper discounts across the board. Instead, most brands will likely keep offers that are similar to last year's level. However, the important thing for planning is to also keep a close eye on competition. Even if discount depth doesn't increase overall, consumers will still gravitate to the best available deal in their category. So being slightly less competitive than a peer could mean losing out. So now that we've talked through tariffs and promotions, let's shift gears to another major factor shaping consumer behavior in 2025, which is the rise of AI and large language models, or LLMs, such as ChatGPT. So, when we think about the holiday shopping journey, it typically happens in three phases. The first phase is ideation, when consumers start thinking about what they want to buy or gift. And then we go into consideration phase, when consumers start to compare brands, read reviews, and narrow down the options. And then finally, the purchase phase, when Black Friday or Cyber Monday deals go live and they complete the transaction. So, where we're seeing the biggest shift from AI is in those first two stages, the ideation and consideration phases. Consumers are increasingly turning to LLMs like ChatGPT for helps with things like coming up with shopping lists and product ideas, or running a quick brand and product comparison, often in a way that feels easier and faster than traditional search. And this is not a small trend, it is happening at scale. 58% of consumers say they've already replaced traditional search engines with generative AI tools as their go to for product or service recommendations. Salesforce reports that 39% of consumers have used an LLM at some point in their shopping journey. And while 45% of traffic is still coming from traditional search today, the data shows that consumer behavior is evolving very quickly. So, this makes 2025 the first holiday season where AI will play a prominent role in shaping discovery and consider behaviors at scale. So, at this point, I'll pass things over to Kristen, who will take us deeper into what this means for brands and some of the tactical steps they can take to prepare.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Brent. So, as mentioned, another major factor shaping consumer behavior in 2025 with the rise of AI and large language models like ChatGPT. So, you may have heard this new acronym LLM thrown around. So, let's understand a little more about what that means. LLM stands for large language models. They're a type of artificial intelligence system which are trained on large amounts of text data to understand and generate human language. Think of them as powerful text prediction machines. They predict the next word in a sequence based on patterns that they've learned. Depending on the type of LLM, these programs are typically designed to answer questions, summarize documents, write articles, generate code, translate language, or even hold conversations. The key thing to note here is that these systems are not just parroting back memorized text, they're generating new responses based on learned patterns from content that exists online. From this new rise of generative search, we're seeing a change in search behavior and how people do their research online. As of 2025, ChatGPT is being used by nearly 200 million users daily, receiving 2.5 billion daily prompts. But today, users still prefer traditional search engines, with search platforms like Google continuing to receive 16.4 billion searches per day. So, as users are still preferring to turn to traditional search engines to answer these questions, but this behavior may change. As people still go to these search engines, Google has had to adapt to combat the largest growing search engine, which is ChatGPT, and have introduced their own AI model, Gemini, which is now integrated with Google search engine to provide better answers for users. With these changes, there have been notable changes in that search behavior that we're seeing within the search engine results page. With these introductions of AI overviews, websites are now seeing up to 34.5 fewer clicks, meaning more zero-click searches are happening than ever. With the result of less clicks, organic traffic is being impacted, resulting in between 20 to 40 fewer sessions year over year as a direct result of these AI overviews in Google. With each passing day and each Google update, more and more AI overview results are appearing, which truncates the organic and paid results within the search engine results page. AI has fundamentally transformed both organic and paid marketing channels by making them more efficient, data-driven, and personalized. Really, the shift from manual processes to automation, advanced analytics, and predictive modeling is really empowering marketers to refine strategies, optimize customer experience, and then ultimately to achieve a better ROI. As AI continues to evolve, its role in shaping digital marketing is set to grow even more prominent. As of today, autonomous shopping agents by OpenAI, Google, Microsoft, and some others can now search for products, compare prices, and even complete purchases on your behalf. This shift is gradually moving customers away from those traditional browsing and more towards direct chatbot or voice-driven experiences. Ultimately, what we need to know from all of this is AI is making it easier to compare and buy products online. So really completing more of that research phase and consideration phases. OpenAI plans on introducing an integrated checkout feature that will allow users to complete transactions without even leaving ChatGPT. Comet Browser AI Agent by Perplexity can complete tasks such as browse the web based on shopping requests. And Google's new AI mode brings up different product options, and the company recently released an AI product tracker which can alert customers and consumers when the price of a desired item has dropped below a certain level. As these AI technologies and generative results continue to evolve, it's critical to ensure that your business, products, and services can be easily found and featured to help nurture your audience through the path of purchase. If you've been engaged with SEO, you may already be implementing strategies that align with these best practices for both traditional search engines like Google or Bing and the modern AI generative tools such as ChatGPT or Google Gemini. The developments in deep learning and natural language processing originally stemmed from an embedded model that Google injected into their search algorithm in 2018 called BERT. BERT stands for Bidirectional Encoder Representation from Transformers. This algorithm update marked a major breakthrough in natural language processing, as BERT's intent was to help match natural language input from users and understand context. Sound familiar? In 2018, SEOs had to adapt their strategies and found new opportunities to target longer tail queries. From these changes and optimization efforts made over the last 7 years, these same principles continue to apply for the LLMs of 2025. There are several practices that SEO would support for your website, which have really good overlap with helping to align search intent with your audience. When looking at optimizing for generative AI search and for LLMs, keyword research can help inform opportunities for content that is important to your users, such as gift guides, reviews, and more. And this ensures that your website has content that supports these queries. This may inform requirements for either net new long form content or short form content, such as in the form of FAQ questions and answers. And it may also inform general metadata updates or product description updates that you may need to make to your website to make it more findable. Additionally, creating shareable content such as gift guides can be a really good way to generate external links that point back to your website and brand, making it a more trusted authority as those are doing their consideration research. Additionally, it's important to keep in mind that structure and readability of your content matter. Ensuring that your website content can be easily found and understood to be featured is really important. Focus on aligning with natural language, providing additional context through technical improvements like schema markup or LLMs.txt files, and ensuring that your website loads quickly are important considerations with helping with the visibility of content within your AI results. Similarly to how you would work on your website from an SEO perspective to stay ahead of your competitors, AI generative search functions much in the same. As AI search is constantly evolving and learning, continuing to monitor your performance within these platforms and identify new opportunities to capitalize on can ensure that you don't fall behind as these platforms evolve. These, of course, are just optimizations for organic performance. There are also a few things that can be done from a paid perspective as well. So let's shift to talk about where the paid opportunities exist when it comes to these AIs and LLMs. The first important call out is that there are no paid placements available on ChatGPT right now. Everything we've discussed so far is on that front organic. Where we are seeing movement, however, is with Google AI overviews and their new AI mode. Paid ads are now eligible to appear within these placements, but at this stage, they're only available in the US. The expectation is that they'll expand to other English-speaking markets in the near future, so we may see availability in Canada sometime in Q4. From a funnel perspective, these placements are more upper and mid-funnel. That's because people are using AI for longer, more contextual queries, often asking questions like, how does this product work? Or is product good for this specific use case? Or maybe what is the best option for XYZ? The AI is interpreting intent and surfacing ads where it sees your product as a potential solution. So, what do brands need to do to prepare? The good news is you don't need an entirely new campaign type. These placements integrate with your existing Google Ads campaigns, but there are a few things to keep in mind. Broad match keywords are critical since AI queries tend to be longer and more complex. Using AI Max for search, which is currently in beta, as well as Performance Max or PMax, will help ensure coverage. Your feed hygiene matters. The more descriptive and accurate your product data, the better Google can find and match your products to the complex search intent. And finally, you'll want to continue to lean on smart bidding strategies like target CPA or target ROAS. Google will bid on placements it believes can convert profitably, which helps ensure relevance. This is still in the early days, but Q4 could be the holiday season where AI-powered search placements meaningfully influence paid results, particularly for brands that sell in the US. As paid opportunities continue to evolve, there are several things that you can do today to start winning in AI generative search. Many of the organic opportunities lie in SEO optimizations for your website. If you're not currently investing in organic performance and working with an SEO, there's no better time to start than today. There are a few key areas to look at when optimizing for AI generative search. First, you'll want to flex EAT. That is expertise, experience, authority, and trust within your website content and product descriptions. Ensure that your content is high quality, answer-oriented, and include detailed product descriptions and optimizations such as reviews to help get your content featured by providing as much information for these search engines and LLMs as possible. You'll want to leverage keyword research to understand search intent. Knowing what your customers are looking for and ensuring that you have the content that aligns with their query is critical. Questions about a product, reviews, questions about your brand, etc. You want to have the content that has the answers to all of those. Technical optimizations and user experience are a very important part of findability for your website for both traditional search engines and these AI LLMs. Leverage additional contextual markers such as schema markup and internal linking, or you may want to check your server logs in robots.txt to ensure that you're not blocking LLMs from accessing your content. You may want to consider improving your user experience for your users and the bots on your website alike, including ensuring that your website loads quickly and is optimized for mobile. It should be noted that there may be other technical considerations which may need to be explored, as it may be impacting how your content is found online or not, including issues with canonical tags, duplicate content, SKU numbers, and more. Having an SEO vet your website to ensure AI readiness would be very valuable for winning in more than just your traditional search engines. Investing in SEO for AI rankings can help boost your visibility in AI search results by ensuring that you have the content that matches in the different points of your customer's journey. You'll want to earn the trust of your customers and audience by having these answers appear during every stage in their path to purchase. Capitalize on conversational searches and know exactly what your customers are looking for to make sure that you have the information that best matches those queries. And of course, this is your opportunity to be a leader as AI continues to evolve, including how your audiences continue to use it in their buying journey. And with that, I'm going to pass things off to Matt, who is going to walk us through the latest in creative trends.
Thanks, Kristen. So when it comes to performance creative for the holiday season, creative is more than just what looks good. It's really about what's going to build trust and what's going to drive action. As we discussed, consumers are more skeptical than ever. They're comparing brands, they're questioning the legitimacy of brands and researching purchases in advance before they even think about checking out. That means our creative assets are carrying a much heavier responsibility than they historically have. It's not just about standing out in all of this noise that we see here. It's about, excuse me, it's about reassuring shoppers that your brand is reliable, authentic, and it is worth their money. So let's look at some strategies that we can implement here. The first thing to note is that volume is the new baseline. One or two versions of ads aren't cutting it anymore. Consumers expect messages to feel personalized and relevant to them. That means that you will need multiple variations of messaging, calls to action, and primary and secondary text. Most leading brands are now deploying dozens of different headlines and CTA combinations, and within that having variants that speak to specific audiences. Now, that might feel a little bit overwhelming to think about how do you keep reinventing it, but there are lots of AI tools over there, platforms like Motion, even generative text models that will help you scale these at speed. As always with AI, it's important to teach the model your brand voice and ensure that your tone is staying consistent. That is what's going to build trust, illustrate value, and the quality of your product as well. Using some classic frameworks too is a really great way to think about what some of your multiple versions can be. So for example, if you have somebody who is worried about holiday shopping delays, you can have CTAs, order now to beat the rush, really stressing urgency. Inventory is running low as well as a great one. Building more trust, one-time or on-time delivery guaranteed, and really offering value ads as well. So free shipping when you shop early. So think about, as you progress through the season, from that early intentional research, what will drive the most engagement, and constantly test those between each other with multiple variations. When we get to the actual messaging that you're putting into it, it is very tempting to come up with clever and headlines in that. But clarity over cleverness wins this time of year. Tone down your brand voice a little bit. Promotions are the expectation, and that is what people are looking for. So instead of just saying vaguely holiday deals you can't miss, say 26% off site-wide until January 15th. I realize that's a mouthful, but I'm trying to illustrate the importance of specificity here. Provide that transparency is going to build that trust for people. Now, with that trust message in mind, it's important to reinforce those proof points that exist. So price matters, trust is rising. So there's a few different phases that we can work on this. So layering in social proof, reviews, testimonials, ratings from Google or other platforms, or endorsements, even volume of sales can help be part of your creative mix. You can bring these in through video testimonials, or you can bring them in through written testimonials. You don't always have to be screaming from the rooftops with a big promo offer, but make sure that's involved in there too. Include trust badges. This can take a lot of different forms, right? Whether you are a B Corp certified company or whether you have a 5-star Google rating. Those known badges that exist out there can help validate your product and the quality of the product that you're purchasing to consumers. And finally, if possible, wherever you can, use authentic user-generated content. If you can get those video testimonials, if you're utilizing, unboxings or photos that customers have submitted, these may be not as well polished, but they often perform very well because of the authenticity that comes along with them. So let's talk a little bit about the anatomy of an ad. This is obviously a made-up ad, and I'm trying to illustrate a point here. But again, promos are the expectation. Make sure they are visible. Don't overcomplicate your deals and language. You may have multiple parts. You may have tiered offers in that. Try and break them down to their most simple form. And if you do have a secondary offer, make sure it doesn't take away from that primary one. So for example, here, we've got our free shipping below our 26% off. Creating urgency really, really helps, especially the later you get into the holiday season. So limited time offer, act now, quantities are limited. These are all different strategies that as the season progresses, you can create more and more urgencies and create a little bit of that fear of missing out on the things that people actually want. Those secondary value propositions as well, right? They may not necessarily be an offer in themselves, but free shipping, free returns, things like that will help to ease the concern that people aren't going to end up with something they didn't want, right? And then finally, showing products in use is very important. So lifestyle images are a great way to show the product in use in day-to-day life. Get close up, show some details of it. This is a great place that you can utilize video content as well, multiple angles of products. That way people know it's just not an AI rendered image in that, right? That this is a real product. They can see and feel the quality that they would want to look at if they were actually in store. So important to keep in mind too, that you need to iterate on combinations of all of these things as well. Like I said off the top, value is the new baseline, or sorry, volume is the new baseline here. Having multiple combinations of offers is going to give you the most information about what is resonating with consumers and staying on top of that with testing. And let's not forget to adding motion. We're showing static examples here. Video performs incredibly well on social platforms, and it gives a more realistic feel to things. So utilize that as much as possible. So when you're thinking about how to segment all of these messages in that, right, personas are a key to doing that. As we said up front, 73% of purchases are researched in advance. So creative that feels personalized and relevant is going to win. It's important to keep in mind, your brand is not for everyone. You can't possibly reach everybody that your product could be useful for. So personas help you to focus in on the right audience who's going to be at the right place in the right time. They may value luxury. They may value sustainability. They may be looking for gifting. They may be looking to purchase for themselves, right? So taking these broad categories of people and breaking them down into individual personas and listing out what matters to these individual groups will help you with your overall messaging strategy and the structure that comes with it. I would say most brands generally have a good idea of who their consumers are and are able to build personas around them. But you may be asking yourself, how do I get started with this, right? Well, there are two paths to this. There's the big long-term path of engaging research, taking a deep dive into data segmentation, and even hiring third-party consumer research groups that will build out very elaborate personas for you. But in the short term, you know your brand. You have developed this brand. You've worked with your brand for a while. Same with your products. Leverage your knowledge of the anecdotal experiences that you have dealing with your consumers and understanding them. See what you've seen on social media and some of the interactions there. You have this knowledge base. And with AI, it's a great way to punch in everything you know, put in the quality of the information that is in you as an owner of this brand, as a marketer of this brand, and helping AI to segment that down into the audiences that have a high probability of engaging, and then using that to develop messaging and variations. So, leveraging data for a creative advantage. It's important to keep in mind that we are primarily talking about performance creative here. And so start off with looking at the data that you have there. Go back, look at your historical performance. Start by mining that data from the past, see which ad hooks, formats, images resonated in previous years. Focus on any patterns that stand out. Were there specific CTAs, certain offers, visual treatments that all worked, and then bring those to the forefront. And then ensure that from that, you can build forward from them with your promotions this year, and then continue to iterate and refine and examine that. That means looking for trends. So look at trends within your own data, but additionally, look at what is trending for 2024, 2025, Black Friday, and then past promos as well. Like I've talked about already, AI is out there. It is an incredibly powerful tool when used appropriately. So when you need to scale at speed, take that data, take that information, the hooks, the formats that have worked, and put them into ChatGPT, for example, and ask the question, what is working? Give me new angles, give me new hooks. Remember, you can always upload images into ChatGPT too that it will analyze and give you opportunities to iterate on it. This is going to help you with your velocity. It's going to help you with the volume that's needed and the ability to test multiple variations quickly. Monitor your competition. It's incredibly important to know this time of year what is in market with your competitors so that you can continue to iterate on this. Don't just look at the beginning of the season. This should be something you are frequently doing, whether you're going into Meta's ad library, Google's ad library, any of the platforms that you can access this through, and constantly monitor what is changing and what is happening there so that you can adapt and be reactive to the competition. And finally, again, AI, look for those strategic gap analysis. Run your consumers or your competitors through AI and look at what are they trying to do? What is the gap that they're trying to fill? How are they iterating on their ads? And from that is really, the creative testing model that you want to look at. So on that note, we're going to pass it back to Kaylee, but it's important to keep in mind that working backwards through this, you want to leverage your data. You want to build those personas that you think have a high probability of converting, reinforce your trust, keep your offers and your messaging clear with your promos at the forefront, and then aim for volume of assets that can continuously be iterated on. So with that, turn it back to Kaylee.
Awesome. Thank you for that, Matt, Kristen, and Brent. Now we've had some questions submitted. And if you have one yourself, now's your chance to put it in the question box. But before we transition to the Q&A portion, I just wanted to take a moment to thank you all for joining us today. We've covered a lot of ground, from shifting consumer behaviors and the impacts of tariffs to how AI is reshaping search and discovery, and the creative strategies that will help you cut through this holiday season. If there's one big takeaway, it's this: while uncertainty is high, opportunity is higher for brands who plan early, build trust, and stay agile. For our current partners here today, we're excited to continue collaborating with you to put these strategies into action and make sure your Black Friday and holiday campaigns are set up for success. And for those of you who are new to Northern, we'd love to connect with you one-on-one to explore how we can tailor these strategies to your business. Now we can take a look at some of the questions that have come in. And again, if you have any more, we have about 15 minutes left. So now's your time to get those final questions in. But to start off with, I have one here for Brent. So the question is, you guys talked about the importance of the lead up phase to Black Friday, Cyber Monday, and building consumer trust during that period. Outside of creative, what are other tactics brands should consider doing from a paid media perspective? What would you say, Brent?
Yeah, good question. I mean, definitely creative is going to be probably one of the biggest levers you can pull to kind of instill that brand trust and product quality. Outside of that, I think it's about how you are going to set up your campaigns in order to get that message to reach the most people or have the most impact. So I think it's really important to be leaning into upper funnel tactics as we go through that early or like kind of September, October period, that lead up phase, if you will. Think of things like reach campaigns on Meta, video view campaigns on Meta, demand gen on Google, potentially leveraging YouTube. These are all tactics that are going to get you significantly cheaper CPMs compared to just optimizing towards conversion events or purchases, which is going to allow you to really increase that reach and overall awareness. And as I mentioned, kind of that lead up phase is where you're building that equity, but it will be actual Black Friday, Cyber Week when those purchases come in. So it's about getting all those people into your audience pool and getting them prepared with that kind of that brand trust messaging so that you have those audiences built up for actual Black Friday. So I guess upper funnel tactics is kind of where we would tend to lean into. For any existing Northern clients, definitely we'll be kind of providing those tactics specifically to you. But for any brands out there that don't currently work with us, happy to kind of dive in and discuss that further too.
Perfect. Thanks for that, Brent. Next question, I think this one is best suited for Kristen. So the question is, I'm curious, if you publish AI generated gift guides or blog posts, can you still rank, or is that something Google frowns upon?
That's a great question. So this is one that's certainly been in a lot of conversation with the rise of AI technology. And the short answer is Google has come out and said that any AI written content that's published to a website with the intent of ranking is given the lowest quality score on that EAT score. So expertise, experience, authority, and trust. So keeping that in mind, what we would certainly recommend is if you're creating gift guides or long form content, or really creating any content that you would hope to rank in a search engine or LLM, that is written by an actual user, is written by someone who can flex that experience and authority and trust that is brought to you by your business. Now, that's not to say there's not ways you can leverage AI to help you with that. You can certainly use tools like ChatGPT as more of like an ideation, coming up with more of a structure of how you may want to put together a framework for that piece of content. And you may be able to use it for some minor editing or even proofreading. But creating that content within AI is something that you would not want to publish to your website if you intend for it to rank. I hope that answers the question.
I think so. And if anyone needs any further clarification, of course, feel free to write in the comment here in the chat. All right, and let's throw this one to you, Matt. Question is there any specific type of video content that performs best this time of year?
Ooh, that's a big question. So I'm going to start off with saying the best video is the video that you have, right? If you have video assets available, make sure that you are utilizing them to their fullest potential. There's a few different ways that I can answer this question. So when we're talking about consideration, if we're talking about building trust in that, authentic UGC is great, right? If you have video testimonials and that is a great piece to run early on in the season to start building that trust and priming audiences with that. When we are thinking about product-focused videos, like I touched on earlier, think about real-world scenarios where your product is going to be used. Show lifestyle video of products in action and that. have a mix with close-up details that highlight the pieces and the features of your products that you want to make sure are out there or that really illustrate the quality. I always like to think about the fact that, when you are actually in the real world shopping, there are phases to your consideration. You may look at something from afar and get a big picture and go, wow, that looks really cool. As you move in towards it, you want to see more details. You want to see the zippers on the jacket and feel the fabric in that. So think about how you can get as close as possible to emulating that, because people may not be familiar with their products. So giving them as much detail as possible is a great way to help show the quality and the value of your products. Yeah, and then as always too, just high quality video content as well as photographs are always going to just help with that authenticity as well.
That's great. And I saw a question come in from Michael. I know you touched on it a little bit, Kristen, but I don't know if there's anything else you want to speak to specifically. But the question was, are you seeing evidence of people using AI agents to conduct this consideration research? Could you explain the large jump in pre-purchase research?
Yeah, of course. So another great question. So yeah, the long story short here is as these AI agents and AI assistants continue to grow and evolve, we are seeing that consumers are experimenting with those agents to help them narrow down their choices faster. So again, in the way that the AI models work, they're able to take mass amounts of data and consolidate it very quickly. So where a user may be doing this research previously, now they're able to do it much quicker with the help of AI. So whether they're looking at comparing product specs, analyzing reviews, or even just building like a personal recommendations list, this is where AI can then take all of that information and provide the user with the answer very quickly. So we are seeing a lot of those pre-purchase consideration phase research happening within AI. But that said, people still are turning to those traditional search engines, so those are still answering those questions. But this is where we do see, like, for example, with Google having AI overview and Gemini more in those platforms as well, that's where we're still seeing those zero-click searches that may be happening as people are doing that research that may be ranking within that AI overview. So the big thing here is knowing how it basically extends the research window and it makes that research a lot more structured and data-driven. So this is where we really need to make sure that businesses are considering AI readability and how you're able to structure your content in a way that those AI models can understand so that your business can be featured within those generative results during those consideration phases.
That's great. One of the questions was if we'll be sharing the deck post-event. So yes, you will receive the event recording right to your inbox once we wrap up. So you will have access to the event video or the slide deck video from there. Not sure if anyone could speak to this. We're wondering how or if the direct interpersonal connection impacts the sales and longevity relationship with the brand. Does anyone have any thoughts there? So how, or if the direct connection impacts the sales and longevity relationship. It's also one we can get to afterwards.
Answering the question directly, yeah, we can definitely follow up with that one. But yeah, I think definitely like with all the advances in like technology and AI, it's still really important to have a strong like a CRO and web experience, especially during Black Friday, Cyber Monday. And there's certainly ways that AI can actually use to enhance that experience. If you think with like chat boxes, things like that. And then also just on like your email and own channels as well is a great way of building and nurturing those relationships after you've acquired a customer. So I know we didn't get into some of those details in this presentation, but certainly tons of opportunities and topics around that. Not sure if that answered that question exactly, but.
Perfect, thanks, Brent. And I'm just going to put in the chat here because we did have another question pertaining to consent and compliance changes that are coming up. So we actually recently hosted a consent webinar that then also had kind of a summary blog post that went out. So just because we're not the consent experts on the call today, I'm just going to put those resources into the chat. They're two great options for you. You can either watch the webinar on demand or you can just read the recap blog. So I'll leave those ones there. Let's see. Perfect. Yep, that sounds like that answered that. And do we have any final questions? We have only about 4 minutes remaining. So we did have a question pertaining to free product offerings. So do you recommend collaborating to provide a free product offering alongside the ordered item? i.e., I bought a jacket and received a complimentary full-size hand cream product. What are thoughts on offering kind of a free product?
Definitely a tactic that we've seen work in the past, so certainly an opportunity to consider. That being said, like Matt was kind of saying on the creative front, you don't want to overcomplicate your promos, so that like percentage off or that dollar amount off is still going to be the star of your promo strategy, and that should be what you probably ultimately want to highlight. Um, a great opportunity to just sweeten the deal, especially like on Cyber Monday, if that's the last day, if you want to throw in like a gift for purchase, a great way of just kind of preventing some promo fatigue, or maybe just pushing those final shoppers across the line just by sweetening that deal a little bit extra. So yeah, probably something that maybe you don't want to kind of lean into fully, but definitely an element to explore for sure.
That's great. Perfect. Well, thank you, you guys. We are just going to be wrapping down here. I think there's 1 or 2 questions that we won't be able to get to today, but we can reach out to you guys afterwards. So just stay tuned to your emails. Just for registering for this webinar, you'll all receive a follow-up email with today's key takeaways, resources, and a link to our holiday strategy blog. And also just on demand. So if you want to rewatch or share it with anyone else, you're welcome to. But if you'd like a deeper conversation about your 2025 plans, please don't hesitate to reach out to the Northern team. On behalf of Matt, Kristen, Brent, and myself and the rest of the team, thanks for spending your time with us today. We wish you all a successful, high-performing holiday season, and we look forward to partnering with you to make it happen. Hope you all have a great rest of your day.